The period from the accession of Queen Victoria to the outbreak of World War I has been called the Age of Empire. The British Empire reached its greatest extent, covering 1/5 of the world's land area and containing 1/4 of the world's population. The Victorian age witnessed great progress in medicine and public health, which helped to improve the lives of working people in the industrial cities. Social evils such as child labour in mines and factories were also abolished. More adults had the right to vote, though women were still excluded. The coming of the railways heralded a new age of travel for everyone. This iMovie will be all about the Victorian era, about numerous occasions in the Victorian life and how they are important. Despite the Reform Act of 1832, the vast majority of people still had no vote, and because of this, no say in the running of the country. Only men of property had the vote. Chartism was a movement calling political reform. The 6 points of the Charter were votes for all adult males. It would be a while before women got the vote. Voting by secret ballot. Voting was still done in public. Elections for Parliament every year. Members of Parliament, MPs, should be paid a salary and should not have to own a property. And finally, all constituencies, places that sent an MP to their House of Commons, should be the same size. Although Ireland grew large quantities of wheat and other crops, most of this food was exported to enrich absentee landlords, many of whom were living in England. About half of Ireland's 8 million people survived almost entirely on potatoes. Blight disease ruined the potato crop in 1845 and again in 1846, causing terrible suffering. The Great Famine killed almost 1 million Irish people, while 1 million more emigrated to America. The Crimean War of 1854 to 1856 was originally a conflict between Russia and Turkey. Negotiations between Turkey and Russia broke down, and the two countries went to war. Britain and France feared Russia expanding her territory and sent their fleets into the Black Sea to protect Turkish coasts, and were quickly allied on Turkey's side. The Kingdom of Piedmont, Sardinia, later joined the conflict against Russia. Florence Nightingale was born in Florence, which was in Italy. She trained to be a nurse. In 1860, Florence Nightingale found the first training school for nurses in London after the terrible sights she and her 38 nurses saw during the Crimean War. There, the wards were filthy, with unwashed, blood-stained beds. Medical supplies, food and bedding consistently failed to arrive. Florence Nightingale took charge and by the end of the war had saved many lives. She died in 1910, aged 90. The cholera epidemic of 1854 killed 52,293 people, while one in 1848 to 1849 killed 72,000. These outbreaks spurred people to fight the disease by improving sanitation, especially in the bigger cities. Charles Darwin was born in England in 1809. He became one of the world's most famous naturalists. He developed the theory of evolution, largely from his observations of nature made during a 5-year voyage on HMS Beagle. Darwin set off in 1831 to Tahiti, New Zealand, Australia and South America. The Galapagos Islands lie about 1,610 kilometers off the coast of South America and are home to animals found nowhere else. In 1868, the punishment of transportation, which began in the reign of Elizabeth I ended. It had been an extension of the older punishment of banishment or exile. The British had established penal or punishment settlements in North America to which convicts could be sent. After the American War of Independence, North America could no longer be used for transportation, so Australia was opened up as a new place for penal colonies. Victorian novelists, poets, and other writers reflected much more on the social changes and problems of their day than the earlier romantic novelists like Sir Walter Scott or the poet William Wordsworth. The wretched life of the poor was described with great skill by Charles Dickens in books such as Oliver Twist. William Thackeray evoked an image of country and town living among the middle and upper classes in Vanity Fair, and Elizabeth Gaskell depicted life in the new manufacturing cities of the North in such books as North and South. Some of the most remarkable novelists in the English language were written in this period by three sisters who lived in isolation on the Yorkshire moors. Charlotte, Emily, and Anne Bronte probably wrote to escape their oppressive surroundings and produced thousands of poems and romantic stories involving handsome heroes and passionate women. Emily Bronte's great novel, Wuthering Heights, is still widely read today. The main character in Charlotte Bronte's Jane Eyre, an instant bestseller at the time and still popular, reflected women's growing spirit of independence. London's Underground Railway system was the world's first. It was suggested by Charles Pearson, a city solicitor, as part of the environment plans which followed the opening of Thames Tunnel in 1843. It took Parliament a long time to accept the idea of a railway system under the streets of London. However, in 1853 and 1854, the Commons passed a bill approving the construction of the Metropolitan District Railway, an underground line which was to run between Farrington Street and Bishop's Road, Paddington. It was to be over 6 kilometres long. By the end of Queen Victoria's reign, Britain had gained more overseas land and taken over more peoples than any other nation in history. Britain's empire included countries in every continent and islands in every ocean, including colonies in the Caribbean, Africa, Asia, Australasia, and the Pacific. From the end of the Napoleonic Wars in 1815 to the start of the World War I in 1914, Britain acquired so many new colonies that the empire stretched around the world. Because the empire covered both hemispheres, it was known as the empire on which the sun never sets. Thank you for watching, and I hope you listened because now it will follow up to a Cahoots.